Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of All Documented, All True. I'm Sean. I want you to join me as my two friends, Joe and Mike, research and teach us about the unexplainable events, conspiracies, and just plain weird tales that have been documented since the beginning of time. So put on your tinfoil hats, take a big old hit of that chemtrail, put out the garlic for Bigfoot, boot up that Large Hadron Collider you have in the basement, and most importantly, enjoy. I will now pass the show over to our two hosts and experts, Joe and Mike, as they open up dossier number 4 on my guess. James Cameron is using dead people's names and information to fucking inflate the ticket sales of Avatar movies.
I mean,
it's possible.
Fact. There's nothing to talk about.
That's all. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. That's the end of Forever.
Dude, can I just
what is dossier 4 on? Oh, yeah,
I just want to harken back. First off, that was a great written intro.
That was
nice job, and I appreciate that. Very well done. Bigfoot and the garlic. I feel there's only a very small group of people that will understand this reference. I am demanding, and I don't know who I'm demanding because I have a say in this, but I'm demanding a Bigfoot episode where we highlight his love and passion for garlic.
Oh yeah, we have.
Wait, who said he likes garlic? Like, no one can show proof that he exists, but yet they know what his top thing to eat is. Like, he's
let's get off the rails. Let's get off the rails right now.
Fucking Italian Sasquatch.
Me and Paul watched this show. I believe it was just called "Is It Real?" And episode 1 is on Bigfoot. And there is a woman who's like, of course he's real. He knocks on my door every day and asks for garlic, and then drew a picture of him, Bigfoot knocking on her door with his hands out, and her giving him garlic.
I'd love to know the.
She also fucked him, right?
I don't believe it's the same lady, but there are people who have claimed that. Yeah.
I would love to see the first encounter. Like, how does she know right off the bat when he goes like this that he wants garlic? Like, that could be anything.
The same with the UFOs and
he must need garlic.
Yeah. At least what's his name got him water. This lady was like,
true.
He must want garlic.
Probably killed the only Bigfoot in existence.
He's got a severe garlic allergy. Hopefully he had his EpiPen on him.
Holy shit, that would be the best.
Sean, do you have an actual guess for this week? What you think we might be talking about?
No, of course not. It could be anything. It could be anything. And so far, we're 4 episodes in, and I've only really heard of one thing, and that was very vaguely.
I think you definitely have heard of this because this one takes place close to home, like literally a couple miles from where
Are we talking about the little people world?
No. That's
we are not.
No, that's in Naugatuck.
Yeah,
me and Paul went there. I think I went there with Joe too.
We did. They had that throne that was supposed to be cursed, and you
put my nuts on it and pissed on it. Still alive.
Ball sack all over it.
Supposed to die in 7 years, but I'm still kicking.
That was pretty nuts. But no, we are doing, since it is October, we're taking a little break from the aliens, and we are doing the true case that inspired The Haunting in Connecticut. The smash hit movie. It also had I think it was kind of a hit, but it had the sequel, A Haunting in Connecticut 2, Ghost of Georgia, which is like my favorite fucking thing of all time.
I love how it's Haunting in Connecticut 2, but it's not in Connecticut, it's in Georgia. Why would it just be called The Haunting in Georgia?
And by the way, if you called it The Haunting in Georgia, everyone would get it. People would be like, oh, they're doing the next state. That's sick. They could keep doing different states. But
you have 50 movies at your disposal. You can literally just do it for each state.
Connecticut, Georgia.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
So this took place on your end of town, buddy. Didn't it?
It's South Meriden Road?
Well, Yes, it is. It is Meriden Avenue, not
right.
Meriden Avenue in Southington. It's actually 2 minutes from my current house, and I drove by it the other day. It took
I was
some
trying
pictures.
not to
sent
say
Mike.
that, but that's okay.
What, the actual ad? Oh, my house?
The name of your town.
Come at me, you fucking nerds.
More for the FBI, but yes.
Yeah, it's Sean. They already know. But no, Meriden Avenue in Southington, maybe 5 minutes from me, maybe 50 minutes. Who's to say? But I did drive by it the other day and took some pictures to Mike. You know what? I'm just gonna come out and say it. The house is fucking haunted.
No, people were driving. A lot of people were driving to it when the movie came out.
Yeah, I mean, we used to drive by it all the time in high school because it was right down the street that my parents' house was off of. And I mean, it just looked like a normal house.
It became an issue in the town after the movie came out because there was just a line of traffic.
Yeah, the neighbors fucking hated everyone.
Which it is a very. I mean, it's not a busy road
it's not the most convenient road to just pull over and take pictures on.
No, I pulled over and took pictures and sent to Mike, and I was like, I'm gonna get fucking railed from behind. Like, there's cars are just gonna plow right through me. So I can't imagine people traveling to go see it.
Joe just getting railed, baby. All right, so a haunting in Connecticut. I'm excited because I mean, Mike just said you guys went and visited in high school. I don't even think I knew about this case until.
Wait, you never saw the shitty movie that came out about it?
No, the haunting in Connecticut, or is there two?
There was like a documentary style movie that came out when we were in high school.
Discovery or something.
Discovery Channel. That was my first exposure to this, and I do have to say, for documentary style TV specials, it was genuinely creepy.
Well, technically, it's part of the show called A Haunting, but that episode was A Haunting in Connecticut,
and that was while we were in high school.
Yeah, it was 2002, and then they came out with the the big budget movie in 2009.
Okay,
that literally followed nothing that happened in the house.
Oh, good to know. I will just close.
There were ghosts, but that's about it.
and kind of to circle back, not circle back because we didn't say anything about it, but to go back before we go any further, to those listening, this is we're doing like the heavy hitters and then the smaller ones. So this is kind of a smaller one, more of a contained story.
Let's face it, they're all going to be like an hour and a half. They're all going to be an hour and a half somehow.
Yeah, listen to us rambling already.
We're talking about Bigfoot. I was actually
haven't even introduced the family members.
When you were like, I'd just like to circle back to Bigfoot for a second.
Oh, Bigfoot's involved.
No, he's not. Is he?
He lived in the attic.
Oh, fuck.
And I do want to give props to Mike. Mike, hopefully you're feeling better from last time. And Mike really took the realm or the reins here and did a lot of research and watched a lot of fucking news clips.
So fun,
dude. And
Mike,
Mike,
we'll get into some of the interviews later, but yeah, it was fun.
Mike, a lot of people wished you well. I did not pass along the messages, but I am right now.
It's fine. It's fine. I was good like 20 minutes later.
There were so many people that were like, let Mike know. And I was like, okay.
And you should have just told me to stay offline and then just told everyone I was dead.
I mean,
surprise.
Little extreme of a prank.
Coming back to haunt your next episode.
People just falling in love with Mike recently, and only for him to fake his own death to him.
Fake his own
4 episodes. 4 episodes.
That'd be brilliant. Brilliant performance.
All right. All right. So let's kick it off.
Kick it off, Mike. You.
All right. So we're going back. The summer of June 1986, where Digging Your Scene by the Blow Monkeys just came out. We have
Is that a thing?
Yeah, it's an actual fact. I looked it up before.
Digging Your Scene by the Blow Monkeys? Bro.
He's right. Look at this music video. What?
Wait.
Right, so,
wait. Time out. What year is this again? I'm sorry.
1986 in June.
Okay.
Everyone's having a pretty good year, except for Philip Snedeker, who just found a pea-sized lump on his neck. He goes to the doctor. The doctor's like, look, we have to give this a biopsy, and we'll call you back in about a week later. So a week later, that following Monday, him and his mom are sitting by the phone when it rings, and the doctor's like, look, I've got some good news and I got some bad news. The good news is I got your results. The bad news is you got cancer and you're going to die in 6 months.
Yo, what an open.
Unless
I was like getting ready for it to be like, we don't know what it is. Oh, the haunting
Unless
Connecticut.
you undergo
The good news. The good news is they have the results. If a doctor ever said that to me, I'd drive to the office, throw them through their window.
I know, right? So, but if you undergo a bunch of like radical chemo treatments, you can probably fight it off and live like a lot longer. So they decide to do that. Unfortunately, the hospital they need to go to is the Yukon Medical Facility in Southington, Connecticut, and they live in upstate New York. So it's like a 306. Sorry.
Can I just interrupt you for 1 second? Just want to point out that Philip is 14 years old at this time.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I was gonna ask that because I was about to like shit on him a little bit, but now that's fucking awful.
Wait till the end of the story and you can.
No, I was gonna make a joke like all these stories involve like much older men like hanging out with their moms, like just waiting for the phones to ring and shit. But
Yeah.
Phil,
I know
Phil is
this-
14.
What else are you
This
going to
one-
do
yeah,
in
this one's a
1986?
Phil's 14 listening to the Blow Monkeys. Got it.
Well, I didn't say he was listening to them. I just said they came out with a song.
Who wasn't? 1986, who's not listening to the Blow Monkeys?
He probably was. So let's see here. Every day they'd have to do like a 306-mile trip, which would just absolutely drain him because he's doing chemo. So the mom is like, look, I'm going to talk to the dad, and I just totally spaced. Yeah, talk to the family, have like a little powwow, and talk about getting a rental property up in Connecticut. But the problem was they were kind of on a tight budget. So the mom went up there, checked a bunch of different places. A lot of the landlords were like, no, get fucking lost. We're not having a family with 4 like unruly kids come in and just tear the place up. So at this point, she's getting ready to just like pack her shit in and just leave. When she sees a for rent sign on this really nice house, she goes in, she talks to the landlord, and he's like, yeah, that's fine. You can move in, but there's something I should tell you. Like the house used to be a funeral home, which was the Hallahan Funeral Home from 1930 to 1980. And she's like, it's fine. My kids won't mind. So she goes home. They pack their shit up. She is like, we're moving. Sorry?
I'm sorry. You just think this shit only happens in movies, but there are people that are like, there's an abandoned funeral home you can live in, and people are like, oh, all right, sounds fucking good. Like,
So Sean, Paul and I work for this guy. I'm not going to say his real name, but he was all about saving a dollar. And there was a very gruesome murder in our town, a murder suicide. And like the day after it happened, that guy was like, I bet that property is going to be dirt cheap. And he just like went after it immediately before they were even like done cleaning it up and put an offer in on the house and got it for dirt cheap. And
wait, was that
still
like
lives there to this day?
Wait, was that like 2014 or was that way before?
No, it was before that.
Gotcha.
Mid-2000s. Yeah. So yeah, people do that, man.
I know.
Nuts. All right. Sorry.
So so they got the house and she wanted to get everything ready before everyone moved down. So she went there on some of the weekends, and one of the weekends she was mopping up the floor, and all of a sudden all of the water turned to like thick blood, and she's like, this is weird. So she called in the carpenter who was in the other room. The carpenter took one look at it and just bolted for the door. And the mom, Carmen, was just like, it's an old house. These things happen. So she just like ignored it and then grabbed her kids, and they all moved in. And upon moving in, the second Philip went into the house, he's like, this place is evil. We need to go. Something bad is really going to happen. And she's just like, you sound like an asshole. Just shut up. Just shut up. So she ignores him.
I think Mike's paraphrasing a little bit.
What a fucking guy. I don't know.
She's a horrible person. But
I don't disagree.
But anywho.
Can I just can I just say, Mike, before they moved in, before Philip said this place, I don't know if you mentioned, I think you said gurney, but they found toe tags, hoisting apparatuses for coffins still left in the house, medical gurneys, blood drains, all this shit was still left in the basement.
Coffin lifts that raises bodies from the lower floor up to the upper floor.
Yep.
Well, I mean, technically, that's after they moved in. They found it.
This is a horror movie. This is a fucking horror movie.
Yeah, it's like it reminded me of Amityville, when they go into the basement and they're like, "Oh shit, there's a fucking wall here that we didn't notice before." And it has, decaying corpses and a portal to another world.
Well, I mean,
also looking at the house last week, there's no way that stuff's still not there. There's just no way. Like if you saw it, you'd know exactly what I mean. Like that stuff's still there. That stuff's still sitting in the basement.
That's amazing.
So, when they moved in, unfortunately, the dad had to stay back and work. So he'd be in upstate New York during the weekdays. Then he'd come back for the weekends. So the first year they lived kind of without like incident, nothing like too crazy going on. I mean, all the kids would constantly report seeing things, like keep telling the mom like, hey, something's going on. We're seeing things flying around. Things are moving. People are like talking to us. And the mom's like, no, they're not. You're all insane. You're just shut up. Just shut up. So Carmen calls her niece named Tammy, and she's like, hey, come live with me. We got plenty of space. Everything's good here. No problem at all. So she moves in just because her family was going through like a rough divorce. So Carmen kind of felt bad for her and was like, just come here. You can watch after Phil if he needs any help or help me out with the kids. We'll give you a place to live. And so she moved in.
So
Phil,
Mike, right there, I'm just going to stop you. I think we should just do a quick run through of the actual family members' names.
Oh, yeah.
Don't get confused. So Carmen, as you know, she's the mom. Alan is the dad. Philip is the oldest son. We have Alan Jr., who's the brother. We have Bradley, who's a brother. We have a sister.
I have a fucking headache.
It's going to get worse. It's going to get worse because her sister's name, we can't really find much information on, and it seems to change.
Checked every
with
interview,
the family members.
Can't find it.
So you take that for what you will.
Should we just make up a name for her?
We'll just call her Sis because there's no.
I was going to say just call her sister.
And then we have Tammy the niece and we have Kimberly the niece. So they have a large family. There's a lot of people involved with this.
Okay.
And want to put that out there. So if you hear us just saying names, that's who it is. So Carmen mom, Alan dad, Philip son, Alan brother, Bradley brother, no name sister, Tammy the niece, Kimberly the niece.
All right.
So Phil and Bradley, the younger brother, had rooms in the basement because Carmen's like, Phil will like it down there. He's close to death anyway. So they're down there and they constantly keep telling them like, hey, we are seeing.
I mean, they moved him into a fucking funeral home, dude. Like,
great point. Great
Mike,
point.
Like what Mike's saying is like, yeah, it like to normal ears were like, oh Lord, but it's like
must have gone through her head.
We should move into a place of death.
Imagine being Philip, being like, man, I hope I pull this out, and your family's like, go. Your bed is now the coffin strap, so when it happens, it'll just be easier for us to.
Look, we know the doctor said you only have 6 months left to live, but we don't want you to worry about dying. But we did just get a new house. It's a funeral home, so that should take your mind off things.
Yeah, don't think about death.
So the two brothers constantly said, like, we kind of feel like that people are just watching us. They'd see things through. There were like French doors. Their rooms were in the north coffin room and the south coffin room. And then across from the south coffin room was a pair of like French doors that were kind of glass. And outside of that was Phil's bedroom. So he would constantly say, like, I can see people walking around. They're calling my name. They're telling me to do stuff. He tries telling the mom, and the mom once again is like, shut up. It's your cancer. You're seeing things. It's just the meds. And he's like, no, I'm really seeing things. And she's like, stop. You're trying to just influence all the kids and turn them against me. And she's just being kind of a bitch.
I do believe she literally said it's just your cancer as an excuse, which is pretty wild to say to anybody, let alone your own kids.
Yeah, by the way, I just want everyone to know that's watching, and Mike and Joe, that when I rub my eyes like that in distress, these fucking people are just like out of control. It's about the story, not about anything else. So, because I just like did the most exaggerated like eye rub, like, because these people are fucking insane. I don't know what the fuck they're thinking or doing. It makes me nuts.
Sean, we haven't even begun yet.
It gets
it gets a lot worse before it gets better. So after Carmen just like tells Phil to just leave me alone with this bullshit, like you're just imagining it, Phil starts to just downward spiral. He starts just like withdrawing from people, constantly fighting with his siblings. He's just being a complete and utter menace to everyone in the family.
And they make a point to highlight that he starts listening to heavy metal music, which
yeah,
cracks me up.
He'd isolate. During the research, it showed one of his journals, and I was going to write down the poem he wrote, but unfortunately, I didn't. Like he'd write in a journal just this weird stuff about like making out with like dead bodies and stuff. So he was.
But again, he's living in a funeral home.
Yeah. I mean.
Yeah, I mean that is a turn though to make. Like that really is like a, I don't know.
Spiral for sure.
Joe, you want to continue with the haunting?
Sure. So Phil is spiraling. Then we have Bradley and Tammy who are reporting seeing shadowy figures flying across the room that can go through walls and ceilings. Things that would go from looking like a lightning bug and then instantly form into a full figure or silhouette of a person. So they are also starting to see things. A little ghost in Superman pajamas would borrow stuffed animals and hide them, but they said he was a friendly ghost, which I take umbrage to people seeing apparitions and dubbing them as friendly. I mean, I don't give a fuck if he's doing my homework, making my bed.
Dude, a child
ghost.
A child ghost in your house is terrifying.
Dude, any ghost, it's a fucking ghost. Like people say shit like this all the time. Like I have coworkers and stuff that be like, "Oh, I have a ghost in my house." And I'm sorry if you're listening to this and like you have stories like this. Maybe I'm the asshole, but it's a fucking ghost. What are you talking about? I would be out of the house in a second.
If you have a friendly ghost story, head on over to All Documented, All True.
Please tell.
Please tell us so we could mock you on it.
Yes. The kids tried telling their parents, but their mom wanted none of that. And as you can see, she is just a non-believer. She's hardened, and she wants nothing to do with any of this.
But it's also weird because she's incredibly like Catholic and religious, and her logic was like, "Well, I know God's real, but the devil can't do things. He can always just like put bad thoughts in your head. So there's no way evil exists." I
can tell you, as somebody who was raised very, very religiously with very religious parents, my dad would react the exact same way and have the same thought process. And he would not accept that there was like, if I told my dad there was an evil spirit, he would probably kick me in the nuts. What the fuck is wrong with you? So I can kind of understand, like, I can understand what those kids are dealing with Carmen. The kids were so freaked out by this that they would constantly leave the lights on, which, again, something I can relate to, really pissed off the dad because the electric bill started raising significantly. The dad was so mad about it, he removed all the lights in the basement where the boys slept, which...
And it was actually the entire house. It wasn't just the basement. I fucked up on the notes. He got rid of all the lights in the house.
So none of them. So even him and his wife had to suffer.
And they do.
Okay. So there you have it. He was so sick of this shit, he removed every light in the house. But so worth pointing out that the kids were scared enough that they refused to turn lights off at any time. And that it so much so that it raised the energy bill. I like looking at details like that because to me, like, kind of gives credence to at least somebody believing something is happening there. You know what I mean? Kind of like the alien
right.
stories.
So what?
Like,
yeah, like it wasn't like plotted.
right. Like
Yeah.
whether it's a ghost or not, somebody at least believes they're seeing something, or somebody at least believes something weird is going on.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, all the kids report seeing things, so it's primarily them, and the mom's just like living in denial.
Okay. So there we have it. So then the boys started sleeping upstairs because they're scared. The mom told them to cut the shit and sent them back to the basement. Carmen brought Phil to the doctor. They told Phil that his results looked good and he's in remission, but Phil honestly didn't really care because he was too concerned about what is going on at the house they just moved into.
Okay.
Carmen would set the table, would walk out of the room, and they would claim that the dishes would be moved. They would not be where she put them. They would not be on the table. All right, so sorry about that. Had some technical difficulties. Carmen would set the table, walk out of the room. All the dishes would be moved or put away, and she would do nothing about it. She would ignore it. It's business as usual for Carmen. A few nights later, after the dishes started disappearing, the younger brother woke up to find his sister flicking on the light switch and giggling. Then she ran upstairs. He followed. He told his parents, but they told him that's impossible because the sister was sound asleep in the bed, and reminded him that the dad removed the light bulbs in the basement. So, kind of like the movies that we just covered on the show, he's seeing a family member. They're doing something. He's confronting other people about it, and they're like, that can't be. We see them right there, and all the lights are removed. Mike's note here is the ghost starts getting super horny, and that is an understatement because everything to this point is a pretty, run-of-the-mill haunted house story, right? From here, it takes a turn. These ghosts do start getting horny, and Carmen, the denier herself, claims that she got fucked by a ghost. Both, regularly, vaginally, and in the butt.
Come on.
Well, hold on. Do you mind if I take over this part? Because there's a
Please
sequence
do.
I didn't put in. All right, so
Please do.
Carmen, the night she's upstairs, she's folding laundry, and all of a sudden she feels like a pressure on her back. And at this point, that ghost just dives right in to her butt and just starts pounding away. And Carmen is like, this is weird. This isn't right. So she freaks out, takes out the house, starts screaming, running down the street. Does this ghost give up? No. Smashing into her the entire time she's running down the street. Can you just imagine what that would look like? Like you're in your house, you hear a woman, you look out, and it's a woman saying she's being butt fucked by a ghost while just frantically screaming, running down the street.
I mean,
I would lock my doors.
That's not gonna it's gonna fucking hurt.
Yeah.
So you think ghost sex is gonna hurt? I feel like it might not.
Bro, what are you saying? I mean, how does she
They're transparent. They can walk walls.
Yeah.
But they leave behind
They produce the
ectoplasm.
energy of the cock.
And she wouldn't feel it. She wouldn't be like, this ghost is fucking my butt. She'd be like,
you can feel the energy.
An energy dick. You've never heard of him?
Dude, a fucking energy dick you would definitely feel. Like, you're not going to feel the insertion like you would an actual penis, but you're going to feel the energy entering your butthole. Right? Right? You'd be like,
wow, like Santa down a chimney.
No.
Like Santa down a chimney. Yeah. You enter a room and like the energy's off, you can feel it. So if a fucking ghost dick is entering your asshole, you're gonna feel it. But it's not just gonna be like if I entered your asshole. You know what I'm saying?
Now at this point, you'd assume Carmen would be like, all right, maybe these kids really are like telling me the truth and I need to listen. But no, she's just like, nothing happened. So she ignores it. Cut to the weekend. Big Al just got home. He's hot. He's sweaty from work. He jumps in the shower. Little does he know that there's a ghost in the corner, probably sipping some wine, checking him out, putting on his little whitey tighties, thinking, damn, I gotta get that. Al hops into bed, feels a little tickle on his butthole, which then turns into aggressive thrusting. It lasts for a couple minutes, and finally he rolls over to his wife after it's done. He's like, "Honey, I think I just got butt fucked by a ghost," and she's just like, she's just like, "Shut up! Don't be stupid. Go back to bed. That can't happen." And he rolls back over and goes to sleep.
Which one of these people is worse? They are all so terrible to each other. And Phil's just in the basement praying for death.
Well, I mean, he's in the right place for it.
What a fucking nightmare. He's got to be like, this sucks.
So at this point,
what's interesting though is that sex with ghosts, or at least sexual encounters with ghosts, dates back for fucking centuries. You know, succubi and incubi and the Legend of La Llorona. I'm butchering it. So I'm sorry, but it's the double LRONA.
Plus, you also have Lilith, who was the first allegedly wife of Adam, who was also a succubus.
All seductive entities. Stories of this have occurred as long as we've existed. So, you know, it's not. It sounds outlandish to say, but it's nothing. It's not a new concept here. It's not a new concept here.
All right.
So yeah, they pretty much are like, that was probably just nothing, even though you'd clearly know it was something. And so they just ignore it. A few nights later, Tammy gets home from a hot date with the guy she is seeing. She goes up to her bedroom, gets in bed, and she notices a ghost starts feeling up her tits, and she's not cool with that. So she runs to Carmen's room, freaking out, screaming, saying a ghost is like attacking me. And at this point, Carmen's just like, these fucking kids. So she's like, I'm just going to grab my Bible and go pray over Tammy, and she'll realize this is all bullshit. So she goes in, Tammy puts on a rosary bead, and Carmen's sitting there praying when she sees a hand go up Tammy's shirt and start feeling on those boobs again. And at the same time, she sees the rosary beads lift off her neck and then just explode in the air and break on the ground. And at this point, she's like, okay, I believe you. We got to call someone.
Damn.
Yes. So now there's multiple sexual encounters from multiple people within this house, and
just the adults, not the kids. We should preface
not the kids. Yes. And Carmen has finally become a believer after all of that. So I guess
I mean, fucking.
Now, I think it's worth saying who are we getting this information from, Mike? These accounts are from the mouth of Carmen herself.
So my main sources were, I read a couple articles. I watched the Sally Jesse Raphael interview where it had the whole family recounting. And then there was also a documentary that all the family members took part in. I think it is a bonus feature for when the movie came out in 2009, where they recount like the true events of it. So it was going back and forth through those three and then just finding the facts that all lined up, and I put it in there that way. So it's directly from them.
Directly from them. So, you know, while you're listening and trying to make your own judgment, I think it's important to know that it's coming from them and to kind of try and judge their character and watch some of those interviews. The interview with Sally Jesse Raphael is so fucking good because for some reason they're sitting on a bed like they brought a bed out on the show.
Sean,
sitting in the bed.
They're being interviewed on the chairs and stuff like normal. And then when Sally Jesse wants to get into the sodomy of the ghosts, she makes them lay in the bed to almost like reenact what happened as they
getting raped by a ghost.
What happened.
Good old Sally Jesse.
Dude, Alfred Counter is so good.
And this is the shit we were watching while we were sick, by the way.
Watching Sally Jesse Raphael talk about ghosts accosting grown adults while they lay in bed. And then,
she does not let them forget it. She brings it up like 3 or 4 times.
The way that they're laying is so fucking ridiculous. Like, you're on TV. Get a grip. Like, you sit up in the bed. You know what I mean? Like,
my favorite thing was... And every time, like, the dad would talk, it wouldn't just say, like, Alan. It would just say, Alan was sodomized by a ghost. Like, just flashing across the screen, just so no one forget.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, and that's on YouTube for anyone that wants to check that out.
Cool.
Carry on, Mike.
I was going to say, take it away with how they execute solving the problem.
Okay, so Carmen is now a believer. Did you say anything about the crucifixes in the house starting to disappear?
Yeah, they started to disappear, and when that happened, the haunting started to ramp up.
Okay, and then the car. Alan claims that his car came alive and drove into the building where he was working. So at this point,
306 miles away.
So at this point, he believes the entity is following him.
It should also be noted he used to drink a bit during that time too.
Very, very good detail to include here.
Yeah.
So now Carmen's a believer. Alan thinks the thing's following him. They couldn't move out of the house, which seems like a pretty simple solution. Although I guess Alan having a ghost follow him would kind of make that irrelevant anyways. But they couldn't move out because they couldn't afford it. And
hold on a second. I just thought of. All right. So they have a house in upstate New York that they own, but they want to be closer to the hospital. So they start renting the house. If they already have a house in upstate New York, why would they keep renting it?
I mean, I think ultimately you just.
I assume he still has to do hospital like checkups. I'm just gonna assume it's for checkups at the hospital or something like that.
Okay. I mean, I think you really just blew the case wide open. In my personal opinion, it's that these people are fucking idiots and full of shit. But who did they call? They called our old buddies from Connecticut, Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Our buddies. All right, so the family's on board for the most part. How's Sis doing?
We never hear from her again, or hear from the other brother Alan, or the other niece that's there. They just play no part in the story. They just exist in the house, I guess.
Okay.
Again, I think might lend some clues to the validity of this family and their storytelling. But they call up our buddies, the Warren. How would you describe the Warrens, Mike?
Famous ghost hunters. Lorraine's claims she's a clairvoyant, and Ed is a demonologist.
Yes. Are they widely respected?
In the church community, I believe they are. And I believe with the church. I mean, you have their people that like them and people that don't like them. But I think for the most part, they're mostly accepted as like the best ghost hunters you can get.
I think they're pretty polarizing, and I think so because in terms of like ghost hunting, I mean, I enjoyed always hearing about anything that the Warrens did. You and I went and saw them when we were younger, Mike. But a lot of things come out about the Warrens. This case, no exception. That tends to point to the fact that they might skew things for their own benefit or encourage others, or maybe gloss over some details that might hurt the case that they're trying to promote. So, but they did do the Amityville Horror, another much maligned case, and this is pretty fucking similar across the board to the Amityville Horror, so it makes sense that they would be called. The Warrens believed that the previous workers at the funeral home would have sex with the corpses. That was the conclusion that they came to, which I guess that would make sense if you have a bunch of horned up ghosts that are committing sexual acts to come to that conclusion that the previous owners were desecrating corpses and their souls are not too happy about it, or they missed the previous owners.
that tracks for me. That tracks.
Well, I think it was shortly after that in one of the interviews, Ed was giving his theory of what he thinks exactly happened, and according to him, there's absolutely no facts behind this. It's just what he thinks happened. He's just being Ed. That it was a mortician that would take the bodies, cut the toes off, then line them up at a giant round table to prop them up to play poker, where instead of putting money in the middle, he would just toss toes until instead of chips, until one night where he was playing, he started hearing noises. Like Joe said, he also used to bang the bodies too, and then had a heart attack. So Ed theorizes that a lot of the spirits are the bodies he used to play poker with and bang, and he might be one of the main ghost or demon that's responsible for the haunting.
Now, Mike, does Ed have any proof that this guy did that with the toes?
Oh, absolutely not.
I was gonna fucking ask, how the fuck do you discover that when, like, I feel like
I was listening to it being described and I was like, how? First of all, they're saying that he was in the middle of like a game of fucking poker and he started hearing noise and then his heart started racing and then he thought he saw something. And then he died. How would you know that? He was the only person down there. It was like the 1970s or shit. There wasn't cameras. Like, it's not like he made a phone call to be like, hey, I just got finished banging a body. Now I'm playing poker. I think I'm having a heart attack, but I just wanted to let you know. Like, no.
This was the
mortician that
right, but this was the influence. This story is what influenced OAR to write that song. That was a crazy game.
Friendly game of poker.
Yeah. It was a crazy game of poker.
He's talking about the toe game.
Well, it checks out, and now I'm back on board with believing it.
All right, continue.
The fucking gall on Ed Warren to just sit there and be like,
"That's so nuts! Why would you even
coming up with the most idiotic thing?"
Oh, dude, if you doubt Ed Warren, he will straight up almost take like a swing at you. Like he has none of that shit. He would come at you.
He would. He's dead now, so he won't. But he
would
if he's still alive.
Like honestly, to make up something that insane, like just off the top of your head, makes me doubt more of their shit, because that's fucking nuts to say that out loud and be like, well, how do you come to that conclusion? And he's like, don't worry about it.
Well, that's his MO. And he stayed, the Warrens, three researchers stayed with this family for 9 weeks and they wouldn't accept pay. They did the same shit with the Amityville Horror House. They're like, I won't accept pay and I'm going to stay with you, but I'm also going to help you write this book and then we're going to get fucking paid.
Right.
So they kind of have a track record of doing this. I know we're kind of getting into the doubt part a little early here, but the Warrens always come with a bit of doubt to me. I find a lot of this
always
stuff
have a motive.
Fascinating. They showed us when we saw them, Mike and I, when we were younger, and we saw them. They showed a video of an exorcism, was like excerpts. It was really well done. If it was fake, it was really well done.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not sure.
I have no doubt that they've seen some weird shit, but yeah, I'm not either. But they also claim they have, fitting for all documented, all true. They claim they have an actual transformation of a werewolf on film, but they couldn't release it to us yet.
Conveniently, all their footage always gets like lost or damaged right when they're about to put it out.
I fucking love this.
So the Warrens, they stayed with them. They didn't want to accept the pay. They also suggested that an exorcism, but of course told the family to go public with their story because it would help get the church involved quicker, or would help get the press involved quicker and their interest in book revenue quicker. But that's just my take on it. So they suggested the exorcism and suggested going public. The family reluctantly agreed in order to get the haunting over with. Doing so made their lives considerably worse, and the family got harassed for going public with it.
Oh,
which is something that we see quite often when we talk about stuff, even with the aliens. People like Betty and Barney Hill, they did not want to go public with it out of fear that they were going to be harassed.
I mean, that seems so fucking insane, doesn't it? Like, excuse me. Like, I wouldn't, like, you hear the story, you might be like, oh, wow, what a fucking bunch of maniacs. But you wouldn't fucking do anything about it. Imagine being so like, what the fuck, that you like start harassing them,
just waiting outside their house, be like, you fucking piece of shit liar.
That's so nutty, dude.
Different time. We talked about it on our Patreon episode. Yeah. We were talking about the black phone and how the 70s people just kicked the shit out of you for no fucking reason. Pre-2000s, I guess maybe that was a thing. You had nothing else to do. So go bully these fucking losers getting fucked by ghosts,
I mean, that's what happened to all the kids. Like, they claim that when they went to school, the kids would just kick the shit out of them and call them like Ghost Boy and shit like that. And then no one wanted to hang out with them.
That I'm more inclined to believe. Like, kids are mean, and back then bullying was a lot more rampant than it is now. And if your family is on the news claiming that they're having sex with ghosts,
well, I mean, I don't
kinda
blame
makes
the kids.
you,
I don't want to get fucking
kinda-
ghost cooties.
yeah, no. But I'm saying if like you saw somebody, if kids are fucking mean, if you saw not like us, like I know we wouldn't do that, but there are kids who, if they saw somebody's family on the news being like, these ghosts are putting their ghost dicks in our mouths every single night, those kids they're gonna have a fucking field day. Are you kidding me? They're gonna have a field day. Like people have like if your mom is single and dates somebody, the kids are gonna have a field day with your mom. Like if she starts dating, we knew kids whose moms were single and were dating a teacher at the school.
Banging
like they just
baseball coaches.
They just and kids had a field day going after them. Can you imagine seeing them saying that stuff about ghosts? So now I'm back on board with the bullying and the mocking.
Hey, I heard your dad got butt fucked by a ghost.
I mean,
you're setting yourself.
It writes itself, dude. Yeah, that's terrible. And then what they like we talked about Sally and Jesse Raphael. I mean, you do yourself no fucking favors when you're
that
on
interview
Sally,
did
Raphael,
not help
and you're
anyone.
laying in a bed being like, this happened to me. Like they're being such mopes about it, Sean. It's unbelievable. And the way that they're positioned.
Energy dicks. No, Sally, it's actually an energy dick. It's not a full penetration. It's just an energy that I feel in my anus.
Well, a little tingling.
Not even that, but one of my favorite parts about the whole interview is just the way Carmen acts. The second like Al says anything, if he's like, yeah, I was laying there and I got sodomized by a ghost, Carmen will instantly be like, oh, but I got sodomized first. He did it a lot harder to me. He did this and he did this and he pulled my hair and called me stupid and ugly. And I was like, yeah, okay. Every time someone says something, Carmen's got to come back at it like 10 times harder.
Yes.
Very questionable dynamic there, I guess I would say.
Yeah.
Very questionable. And for somebody who, seemed to doubt it for most of its occurrence, really hams it up and really goes hard with this happened to me and it happened to me the worst. So
yeah,
take that for what you will. So church agrees to do an exorcism, which is kind of surprising to me because I always you always read that it's like the last thing that a church is going to do. Like that's always the last option. I've read things of people having like ridiculous proof that something might be wrong in the church being like that we don't perform exorcisms unless it's like really wild. But
right. I think they limit it, like they never ever sanction them unless it's like an emergency according to them.
Yeah. And somehow this one was deemed worthy of an exorcism. The church agreed to it. It was performed by 3 priests and 3 deacons in Latin, Hebrew, and English. The family signed a non-disclosure agreement not to share the actual ritual with the public, which makes sense when you're doing a sacred ritual. I have no problem with that information. And the siblings were not allowed to attend. They were too young to do this. So I find this to actually be the most interesting point in the story, like personally, because like we just said about the church agreeing to do it, it's kind of rare. Having to sign an NDA is pretty significant. And the thing that like, it's going to sound crazy to say, the exorcism itself is the most anticlimactic thing ever. It's the most non-Hollywood exorcism of all time. It was just, they performed the exorcism.
Super boring.
The house was shaking. It was colder in the house during it. Ed got chest pains. They said amen, and then the house was fine. And that's the end of it. That's the end of it. And that makes me believe the exorcism more so, because if they were like, oh, the head started spinning around and there was a spider walking down the stairs, I'd be like, all right, get the fuck out of here. Like,
so pretty much the house got dark and Ed got a fucking Charlie horse and that's it. Ghost gone.
Yeah. So the fact that it's not glamorous, I find that pretty interesting. And the fact that they had to sign the NDA, I think is a pretty neat fact.
Yeah, that's cool.
So after the exorcism, and again, very anticlimactic. There's honestly not much else I can even remotely say or stretch into anything of interest for anybody listening. That was it. So they waited for 6 days after the exorcism to make sure that it worked, and I guess it did because the family moved out. So 6 days later, they're done. They're good. They didn't get fucked by a ghost in a while.
Everything's kosher.
It's pack up and go, even though we didn't do that in the first place because we couldn't afford to. But you know what? 6 days, a lot of things can happen, I guess. So they hit the road. They moved to Tennessee, and they wanted nothing to do with the haunting from that day on.
Except for the books, the movie,
except for the books and the movies,
multiple
and
interviews,
the talk show.
And Carmen dedicating her life to helping ghosts. She becomes his spiritual leader.
It's true. But they still have maintained that they moved away because they want nothing to do with the haunting.
Okay, fair. All right.
Yeah. Carmen, in an interesting turn, she thought the Warrens were fucking pricks. And she severed ties with them because she felt they only wanted notoriety and they didn't give a shit about her and her family afterwards. So,
okay. Well,
pretty on par from what you hear from the Warrens, but also interesting because Carmen kind of seemed like she wanted the notoriety. Maybe it was just they couldn't agree on what stories to tell and stuff, or maybe she really felt that they didn't actually care for her family. I don't know.
But the weird thing about it, though, is because the Sally Jesse interview took place 2 years after the haunting, and the Warrens are on it with them, and they're like best friends. Carmen's like, they're the best people in the world, blah, 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 blah. And then the second the show ended, Carmen's like, fuck those people. These old assholes. Like, they didn't do shit for me. So it's kind of interesting how she like goes back and forth. Like, she doesn't really keep a straight story.
Yeah.
Very true. Yeah. So they're gone. They're in Tennessee. They moved out 6 days later. Lorraine said it was just another case for them. They were a nice family who stuck together, but business is business. So he moved on. Philip went into remission, and he had a family, and he lived until January 9th, 2012. He died in Tennessee, where I guess they stayed there forever. 2002, as we talked about, there was a TV special called The Haunting in Connecticut. 2009, the movie came out under the same name. Some of the neighbors are still mad after the movie, like we talked about, because people started showing up, and they are of the belief that Carmen convinced herself and the family was haunted, which I said earlier, I kind of think, at least the kid, maybe it was the adults manipulating the kids, but I do believe some, if not all, of the family members legitimately believe something happened in the house. Whether it was just the kids, whether it was just the adults, or whether it was the adults manipulating the kids. There are some family members that I think really think that house was haunted. So take that for what you will. Mike.
I guess I'll save it for later.
I was going to ask, I believe I read this, and I didn't look farther into it because I was reading it at work. Didn't one of the neighbors end up moving into the actual house?
All right, so
because they doubted it so much, and they're like, "Fuck these people."
I believe so, but at the same time, there is also a woman living in the house. Like, the top floor of the haunted house had a apartment, and a woman lived there the entire time. The Snedekers were in there, and she's like,
"Wait! I thought that was after. Wait.
No.
I thought after there was it became a 2-family house."
No.
You're saying while the hauntings were happening, there was just somebody upstairs who was just living their day-to-day life.
Yeah.
I hope that ghost doesn't butt fuck me.
It's probably just her, but yeah.
yeah. Did anybody do any investigation into them?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the biggest
what visitors he had? Like what?
Well, she said she didn't. I don't believe she said she heard anything. She heard them yelling from time to time. And then there was another woman who just hated the Snedekers because they constantly brought like people to the neighborhood. They were loud. And this lady was like fucking OG Karen. Like, she documented everything. Like, when it shows her being interviewed, she has a binder like this thick of just like, oh, October 3rd, a car drove by. Its blinker was out. Kids were walking by. So every time the Snedekers would bring something up, like, yeah, on August 14th, like, our house started shaking. The bulbs were like exploding and ghosts were like screaming at us. She'd be like, you're a liar. It was a garbage truck dragging a train or a chain. And they'd be like, no, I was attacked. No, it was a garbage truck. So yeah, the people in the neighborhood fucking did not believe it and they hated them.
Hey, she could be a disinfo agent.
That's
Just
what
saying.
I'm thinking. That's
Just
all
saying, she's a
that's all
plant
I'm
by the
thinking. That's
government to discredit
all
the
those
story.
fucking notes. What are you fucking doing? I who's crazier? Like, what the fuck?
She is. She
Yeah.
is. What the fuck are you taking notes for?
She
Day by
also
day?
has
And why
every
would you
single
write down
article
what
about the
time a
family
garbage
too.
truck went by? She did
She-
what?
She also had a scrapbook of all the articles about the family in there too.
Yeah, she's certifiably nuts, and she's a disinfo agent. I am now on board that this is a true story.
Yeah,
Because of that lady.
I'm a little bit. Yeah, maybe the Catholic Church Center.
But the Catholic Church would want this to be true because they performed a successful exorcism.
Yeah, it reflects good on them. Like they came to a family in need and helped out.
Okay.
Listen, this lady is full of shit and a fucking Looney Tune. And I just keep thinking about the NDA. Like, NDAs always make me be like, what? You don't sign a non-disclosure agreement if there's, like, I don't know. People don't just go and be like, hey, I'm going to do this incredible hoax, and then you're going to sign this. You have to get, like, notaries and, like, legally binding
Yeah.
word. I don't even know how to say it. Legally binding language. Like, it's held up in the court of law. You could have the shit suit out of you if you break
It's
an NDA.
also just so weird that they would need an NDA because they didn't want them to like recite the ritual to anyone. It's in fucking Hebrew and Latin.
And they'd have to memorize it there. What do you?
Yeah,
it's insane. Like,
Carmen's not memorizing shit.
I mean, I guess it would prevent them from videotaping, but you could also just be like,
Yeah.
At that time, they had those. Dude, remember those video cameras?
Well, they did videotape
My parents would bring that shit to our baseball games and like football games. You know, your poor like lumbar, like, holding that shit up.
It's like holding like a mini bathtub on your shoulder.
No wonder people have such back problems now. Anyway, they weren't videotaping shit.
No, they actually, the Warrens did videotape and document everything that occurred in the house. But conveniently, it all got destroyed in a flood at the Warrens' house.
You know what? I think I hate the Warrens.
Oh, no doubt.
I used to really like them. But this story has really soured me. Like, this is honestly pissing me off.
Because this is how it is for all their stories.
Yeah, I guess I just never knew that.
So we have some more doubts that we'll get into. Ray Garton, he's the one that wrote the book, Haunting in Connecticut, Mike.
Yeah. Oh, we should also add the two other facts that Carmen and Al divorced in 2005.
Oh, yes.
And Ed died in 2006.
Dude, the fact that they lasted to 2005 is fucking out of control.
I agree.
That's fucking nuts. I thought you were going to say like 93. And I was like, yeah.
They weren't a good
What
couple.
do you have to divorce over at that point? After all you've been through, what do you
I guess that's
the end
true.
of your life? My God. Yeah, and Ed died the next year.
And she went on to become a spiritual advisor.
Yes.
Whatever the fuck that is.
So we have Ray Garton. He's the author. We have the testimony of the author hired to write the original book, which was called In a Dark Place, for the Warrens and the family. Garton eventually went on the record to say that he was not only given conflicting stories from the family, but he was given directions from old Ed Warren to ignore those conflicts and to sensationalize the story. The family thought that he was an asshole. He only spoke to Carmen once. And this is the author you're talking about, right? The family thought that the author was an asshole. The author only spoke to Carmen once for 5 minutes. The family was very against this book, and a lot of his details were bullshit, and they felt that this book was being written for the sole purpose of discrediting the family. So even right here, we have two conflicting stories. The author is saying that the family is full of shit, and that Ed Warren is like, sensationalize this, use whatever information they give you and make it a story. The family is saying this guy is a piece of shit. He only talked to us for 5 minutes, and they felt that he was put there to write a story that specifically discredited them.
Now, I actually tried to read his book or listen to it on Audible, and I got through the first 2 chapters and had to turn it off. It is so poorly written. It sounds like a shitty R.L. Stein book. Like the way he writes, he's like, Philip was in the basement. He calmly sat down in the bed. He realized his jeans were a little dirty and he probably needed to wash them. Wait, what's that? what just walked by my head? Like it's fucking terrible.
Yeah, well, Mike's not alone in that thought because the book was taken out of publication and it was never listed as based on the true story. So maybe this guy's not the best doubter.
Okay.
But another
Also-
weird thing, really quick, is back to the Sally Jesse Raphael interview. The Warrens and the Snedekers are both praising the book. They're like, this book is so good. It's so factual, blah, 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 blah. And then once they're done with the show, they claim that it's all bullshit. And then everyone's got grudges. And once again, it's hard to tell like who's lying and just who's full of like telling the truth.
It is. It is hard to kind of like take all this information and be like, well, who's the least insane in this story?
Right,
Because
right.
every moving part is fucking insane.
Bizarre.
And it keeps getting more and more complicated. Like this author also claims that the oldest son had a drug habit, using LSD frequently. Is this Alan, Mike?
This is Phil, and it actually was.
Oh, it's Phil. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this was confirmed. Like the author claimed that he had a drug habit, and back to the interview again. One of the people in the audience are asking questions, and it's actually a neighbor who used to hang out with Phil, and he brought it up. He's like, "Yeah, do you know your son used to do like a ton of drugs and come over and be like, hey man, I can get whatever you need." I know he used to do acid, and then he ended up having like schizophrenia. And she's like, "Yes, my son has problems, but don't we all?" So that part is confirmed. He was doing a ton of LSD, which is kind of weird for a 14-year-old, but
Yeah.
do what you got to do.
Yeah. And again, it reminds me of the original story of the murders in the Amityville horror house. The guy that killed his family. He said that a demon came and gave him a gun because he was also tripping balls all the time, using heroin all the time, claiming they was seeing things. So.
Okay. So
Yeah, so Philip was doing that, and with his cancer treatment as well.
So the mom just thought that
brain's-
Phil was like influencing everyone and his brain was all fucked up. But she actually called the doctor to be like, "Hey, my son's hallucinating. He's scaring all the kids. He's seeing shit." And the doctor's like, "Listen, bitch, it's not the meds. They don't have any side effects." And she's like, "Oh, okay." And then she continued ignoring Phil until the incident that made her believe.
how crazy.
And then a lot of the other doubts we kind of covered already about there's somebody living upstairs. Nobody outside the home ever reported to seeing anything. Nobody who visited the home reported seeing anything out of the ordinary. A lot of people didn't think it made sense that all of a sudden it's now super haunted and needed an exorcism that quickly. We already talked about the neighbor. Somebody claimed that the family fell behind on the rent, and once they started falling behind on the rent, that's when the ghost claims started.
Okay.
So maybe an ulterior motive there. During the time of the haunting, the police got multiple calls about the house, but none of them had anything to do with it being haunted or ghosts. It was all just domestic related, right, Mike?
Yeah, pretty much.
Lorraine Warren, you already said that. She claims that all the documents related to the hauntings were destroyed in the basement flood. The current owners of the house put out a statement saying, "We have lived in our house since 1998. We are raising our kids here. To us, the stories couldn't be farther from the truth. These
are people that
not
live in the house now.
now. This is not simply a house, but a home. We have never experienced anything unusual in our home. Respect our privacy." I get the respect our privacy part.
You got exercise. What the fuck?
It got exercise. I mean, I honestly do have a problem with that statement because like people could just make that claim for anything, right? Anything weird that happens, you could just go to that same spot and be like, "Well, it's not happening to me."
Yeah.
You know? So I think they're more saying that because people were going to the house after the movie.
Perhaps your anus isn't as inviting as
It's true.
somebody else.
Doesn't have a sweet ass like
You
Al.
need a little gap to get that energy peen in. So
I told you in the beginning when I drove by that house, if there's going to be a haunted house on that road, it's going to be that one. Even to this day, these people did nothing. Nothing.
yeah, like, and also like take care of
Made
your
no
fucking house.
effort
Really
to
about
change
fucking
it.
us. Like, dude, if you lived in a haunted house, wouldn't you do everything in your power to make it like the most fucking
like bright and
Pleasantville ass fucking
Yes.
house?
yes, of course you would. Somehow they made it worse looking. They put Halloween decorations. I'm not. I'm not gonna trash these people. They're probably fucking fine members of society.
Fucking your fucking neighbors, bro. Just come over and beat the shit out of you.
I'd like to see them try.
Yeah, I would too. And I mean that in the way that you would fucking kill him, but
yeah. Anyway, I think if we're gonna go the doubt route, which I mean, of course we're gonna go the fucking doubt route. What are we talking about? Ghost.
One of the neighbors actually came to the defense and was like, "Yeah, Tammy, who was the niece of Carmen, came over at my house and my dad was making fun of her and he's like, 'Hey, bitch, where's your ghost?' Blah 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 blah." And then all of a sudden the table flew up and went like across the room, and so the house is totally haunted. But the entire time she's doing this, she's like combing her hair and shit. So I think she's pretty much just like trying to get attention.
Yeah,
everyone in this is just like suspect.
Everyone in this is suspect. Ghost stories for me, I have a way easier time believing the alien abduction stories than I do believing ghost stories or exorcism stories, especially ones like this. And I think like the most damning thing in my eyes is their inability to really keep the same story. Whereas last week's episode, we talked about Betty and Barney Hill. They are, every time they talked and they even had, hypnotic therapy in their sleep, their stories stayed the same. Carmen's kind of all over the place, bouncing all around. And actually, Carmen kind of reminds me of what we talked about Betty Hill in her later years, where all she wants to do is talk about aliens and be like, "Yeah, is that a UFO?" And it's just a fucking street light. So Carmen, she seems like she really wants the attention, but that's also not to say that she didn't actually experience something and then in turn is loving the attention, just wants to keep, she experienced something, she got put into the limelight, and now she wants to keep that train rolling. So
yeah,
it's not, I don't think that's the most unreasonable thing, but that is kind of damning to me that their stories change a lot. So Sean, we gave you a lot of information. What are you thinking about the haunting in Connecticut?
So, okay. So one thing I want to say is I think the kids, there was a point that you had made earlier. I'm trying to think about what it was. But it was basically like questioning the kid's story. And I think kids can like ramp each other up, like over ghost shit. So
sure.
Oh, we also forgot the shower curtain used to attack people too.
Oh.
I forgot that.
All right. So I guess Ed Warren is a piece of shit.
Yeah,
right.
Pretty much.
Yeah, well, we can conclude that.
But I think Ed fucking dictating to an author what to write is not necessary. Because like you guys are saying, like the Catholic Church came in, made him sign an NDA, and then was like, I'm sorry, did Ed and Lorraine make them sign the NDA or the Catholic Church?
No, the church did.
Okay, so the church comes in, signs an NDA, and like you guys said, it's the most boring story of all fucking time. So I think separately, Ed doing that might actually be evidence about.
But that's also alleged. That's what the author said. But a lot of people claim the author is full of shit.
I think the author is real. I don't think the author had anything to gain. I think.
Well, he never went to the house. He never talked to any of the family members except for Carmen once for 5 minutes. He didn't talk to the Warrens. He didn't like reach out to anyone. So how would he know all these facts? It's not like he was going online like researching it.
He got it from fucking dickhead Ed.
No, he didn't talk to Ed. Ed is saying
he didn't talk to the Warrens. Yeah. The author didn't talk to anyone that was involved with the haunting, except for
the author is well. So that's where we have to kind of, do due diligence to see what we believe. The author is saying that Ed's like sensationalize this. Ed and the family are like, this guy has never talked to us, and this guy is put here to discredit this whole story.
From my brief reading of the book, it almost sounded like he heard certain points of the story and then just filled in a bunch of shit to connect them. Like he knew that the kid had cancer. They moved to that house. It was an old funeral home. make up some stuff. Then, oh, they said this happened, and then just kind of go from there. I think he was just like filling in the blanks after facts that he heard or allegedly heard.
I'll also play devil's advocate here for one quick second, because I don't like. I do think Ed is kind of full of shit, and I do think
100%.
I think Ed and Lorraine are out for Ed and Lorraine. But that said, like say the three of us saw a ghost right now, and all it did was fucking appear and then like wink its eye at us and disappear. We're gonna want to get that news out to people, right?
Yeah.
And like you can't.
Well, whose screen was it?
You have to fucking embellish that a little bit if you want anyone to get any interest, right? Like you have to make it.
We talked about memory too. And it's like their memory might be like way fucking different. Because can you imagine how long that must have felt like lasting? Like how long that must have felt like it lasted, and it probably lasted like 2 seconds.
Yeah, for sure. So one of them might have felt like it lasted 2 seconds, and one of them might have been like, "This is a fucking eternity. Like, what is happening? What is inside me right now?" You know what I mean? So that's a good point as well. So I don't think even if Ed did reach out to the guy and was like, "Put the story out here, but make it fucking interesting so people buy it." I mean, that's a business move. I don't think.
Do you think Ed's getting paid for it though, or no? So here's where my quick thought is on this. I think maybe he did have a conversation with Ed, kind of, and Ed did give him like, "Hey, sensationalize it." But I think maybe Ed was like, "Don't use our fucking story. That's our fucking story, but like make a different story up," type of thing. And then that's probably why the book gets pulled later, is because fucking Ed probably sued the fuck out of him.
Well, no, it's weird because, like I said in the interview, the Warrens and the Snedeker family both are saying like, "Oh yeah, we have this book coming out called Into the Darkness or In a Dark Place, and it's really good and it tells our story." And then shortly after, it got pulled because everyone else was like, "Oh, this is bullshit," like including the Warrens and the Snedekers. So
right.
It almost seemed like
their story, dude. This guy probably claimed he was writing like a novel or something.
The whole thing just sounds like a money grab. Like they come out with this elaborate ghost story. They start promoting it like this happened. They have a book coming out. People are going to want to buy it to find out what's going on. And then they pull it, which makes it even more sought after. And people are going to want to learn even more about it.
So at least
that's what I'm starting to get here.
That makes a fucking mess out of this whole fucking story.
But did people like nobody was like, "I gotta read this banned book"?
No, I don't think anyone did. I think they probably only sold like 700 copies. But I mean, 700 copies in 1988 is probably like $750 now.
So he could fucking hawk them at his fucking speeches and shit. All right, this is a tough one because I really want to lean towards it happened because it's not a good enough story to be fucking made up. It's just not a fucking, like the anal stuff is wild. Maybe
I mean, that if that's gonna catch people's attention and make them stand out compared to another ghost story, or it's just a mom profiting off her cancer-ridden son who thought he saw a ghost once, and just ran with the story.
But in 86, are we sure somebody's going to willingly like go out there and think that saying anal sex is going to get them higher mileage out in the world? Because at that time, shit's pretty censored. I would be like, they're not going to tell this story.
Wait a minute. What year did Poltergeist come out?
80. Is it 82?
It's 82. It turned 40 this year. Yeah.
I was gonna say it's kind of similar to that. I mean, they move into a house. They don't realize that. Well, I mean, Poltergeist thing had like dead bodies because it used to be a cemetery. This one used to be a funeral home. I mean, it's kind of similar. They bring in ghost experts that are very much like the Warrens. I mean, it's just kind of similar storyline, just with more
Zelda based on Ed
butt sex. Zelda kind of looks like a taller or a shorter Ed Warren.
That's fucking amazing. I don't know, man. I think I believe the fucking story, but there's just so much fucking going on. However, I actually do believe the fucking stories not matching up. I think that it actually gives me more belief in it being true. And it's similar to Betty and Barney because even though there's lined up like really well, they said there were discrepancies, right? And like,
Yeah.
that shit's gonna happen. If they came in like with a perfectly matched story, would you be like, holy shit, that's exactly what happened? Like the kids are doing other bullshit. Like how would they know what's fucking going on?
Well, I mean, every time I've seen them be interviewed, they do sound kind of like rehearsed. So, I mean, I'm not saying I believe in ghosts, but if anything, I think the most logical thing is they moved in, they experienced maybe one or two like minor things, and then they just embellished everything.
And yeah, and I'm with, I get that. I agree with that completely too. Like that's the other part of it that's hard to do is like going on Sally Jesse with a fucking bed.
It's so good.
That's fucking
You gotta watch it.
That's fucking mental, dude. That's fucking mental.
Speaking of mental, while you guys were talking that, I was pulling up sodomy laws in the United States, and just sodomy in general. Like you know, there's different laws where targets same sex relationships. This is just straight sodomy in general, regardless of who it's with.
It used to be like punishable by death back in the day.
Dude, it's still there are still laws in place that technically, if like they found a loophole, and the reason I'm looking that up is because like they really went hard with the butt sex angle, which seems like in 1986 that they're not. Like this is making me believe them more because like you're not gonna get publicity talking about that at that time.
No,
people were being jailed for it somehow. It's just fucking. That's so fucking insane.
I'm more curious, like, how do you get caught? I mean, obviously, if you assault someone, that's one way of finding out. But it's not like it's what like I hooked up with my wife last night and I sodomized her little butthole. Please don't tell the police on me.
You brag about your wife letting you slip it in once. The police are at your door.
They've got butthole alarms anytime there's an entry point. It just contacts the police, kind of like an ankle monitor.
Laws are fucking weird.
I know, right?
All right, so to give our Patreon, sorry for the people listening on audio, but it's a fucking Patreon show. You're just getting it as a bonus. Let's fucking bring this up real quick. Let's watch the fucking thing.
The Sally Jesse interview?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I mean, I know it's 43 fucking minutes.
It's 43 minutes?
Yeah.
We have a bed here today.
Yeah, get to the bed part.
This is
when I saw it, I was so tempted to put it on my Instagram story, but I didn't want to like spoil anything.
This is unreal.
I'm so excited right now.
Dude, they dimmed the lights for him.
Yeah.
Just listen.
I'd be sound asleep. I would hear the music playing, and I would say to myself, "What is that?" And I would lie there for 5 or 10 minutes and listen to it. Along with the music, I could hear 3 or 4 voices. They were older men chatting back and forth.
What did you initially think the music was?
It sounded like 30s music from an old Victrola player.
He thought someone was in the house when all of this was going on, and
he's an audiophile.
I used to get up every night, go down the stairs. First couple times, I would just go down and start looking. But each time I went down, I started getting more and more nervous and afraid for some reason. I started bringing a baseball bat with me. I started going through the boys' room, through the coffin room area where the chain body lift was.
No one is playing the radio, and the boys are asleep. And
everybody would be sound asleep. It got to the point where I got so afraid when I was going down there, I started bringing a gun with me. One night I woke Carmen up. I said,
"Wait, which was the Superman where the 3 like superheroes came down? Was it General Zod?"
He was really
he looks like the main guy. Yeah.
Standing up in the room when he'd go around the corner, and he would fire because he was so frightened himself.
This guy was just shooting guns in the fucking house.
Shooting guns in the house with 5 or 6 kids running around.
Yeah, we were never awake at the same time.
At
the bed would begin to vibrate, and it would be a gentle vibration at first, and it got worse and worse. There were other things that happened. The bed, as Kelly said, had a pulse and a heartbeat.
A heartbeat. Yeah.
And when when you were in your bed,
That was
it
old
would come and
Phil
lift the
Seniors.
covers and tug at them.
The Wang,
There was a
baby.
pulse and a heartbeat in the bed.
In the bed, and you could feel it. Someone else could go up and touch it and feel it. People that had not lived in the house, and we had this thing that would walk
They were
around
just
the
asking
bed.
people to come
It
feel the
had
bed.
really small
Yeah.
feet, like a cat. We didn't have a cat. It would walk around the bed,
They had
and if it sat
children.
down, it would be as an adult male sitting. The impression
heavy.
of the bed.
The feet were light, but the weight of what
The
happened.
feet
in
were
bed.
about the size of this.
So they have
cat's feet.
leprechauns in the house.
Al, you said
Sounds
something
like a
else
leopard.
happened to you that is very difficult to talk about even
Hot
today.
night of
Can
passionate
you share it
romance.
with us?
Yes. One night we were lying in bed. Carmen had already had fallen asleep.
Dude,
I felt this
zoom in.
strange sensation coming over my body. It started at my feet and started climbing up through my body. Before I had a chance to reach over to Carmen to tell her something was wrong, I was froze. I couldn't move. And then I felt this stinging penetration in my anal area. And I was trying to scream, to cry out to Carmen to help me somehow. And I couldn't move. After a while, I don't know how long, it had gone away. There was no more sensation. I woke Carmen up and I said, Carmen, I think I was just sodomized by this demon.
This happened to me as well, Sally. It was a tedious kind of pain that happened. It was horrible pain. It was so penetrating and so much pain. There was no pleasure in this. And when it would take me, sexually assault me, it would laugh it with such pleasure. It enjoyed what it was doing to me. And I was so terrified, I couldn't move. It was the most crippling thing I've ever been through in my life, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone.
Now, Michael, you actually.
There's
I'm
points
gonna
where
make-
it comes after people.
So, okay. So
I'm gonna make a claim.
Oh,
I'm gonna make a claim right here.
Okay.
It might be controversial. I would bully the fuck out of those people's kids. Fucking
Oh, me
kidding me?
too. When you mentioned it before, I was thinking like, Joe, we would have totally made fun of them back in like school, but I didn't want to sound like an asshole. But yeah,
Dude,
I
your
100%
mom and
would have
dad
made
are-
comments.
dude, how could you not even just walk by them and do the evil laugh?
Just leave like dildos in their locker with little ghost sheets over them.
the post-coital laugh. This is silly. This is very silly. This is.
Did you
not
notice how
right.
Carmen jumped in
Not
going like 1,000 miles an hour? Well, he sexually assaulted me a lot faster and a lot harder.
Yeah.
Shut up, Al.
Yeah, it was long, and he laughed at me. You didn't laugh. At him. Like, it does feel a little fucking weird like that. It does. And that's the thing. Maybe some of the family, like maybe Carmen had no encounters, but like, I think I'm with Joe. I think something happened.
At the very least, there are family members who believe something happened.
I think something happened, and I think, no, I'm not with that. I think something happened, and I think they performed an exorcism. And whether, who knows what that means, but like something fucking happened, I think. But I need to ask a question.
Shoot.
What's the dad's name?
Alan.
Alan. Yo, was Phil tripping balls, snuck into Alan's room and just fucking diddled his little
Slipped him?
chocolate?
I mean, it's possible. Phil was acting kind of crazy at the time, so he might have thought it was his mom and just slipped into his dad by accident.
Oh fuck!
A classic mistake.
Why are all these haunted
The old
house stories so
switcheroo.
fucked up? Like honestly, this shit honestly pisses me off. Because like these ghost stories are really fucking good, and it's just then you look at the family members and you're like, fuck, like you can't.
Yeah, well, maybe the paranormal activity starts happening because the ghosts are just fucking sick. They're like, just put a normal family in this fucking house. Like, get this family out of here. I've been here for 100 years, and these people come in. They're all incestuous and tripping balls and fucking weird. Get them out of here. That's why the hauntings start.
Yeah, and maybe here's another thought. This
I feel
is
like the Snedekers inspired so many different videos on like Pornhub.
this is a little out there, but like maybe these psychotropic, or I don't know what you call them, hallucinogenic drugs, maybe they open you up to,
Well,
ghost
allegedly, like with
Third eye.
with ayahuasca, there's been a bunch of claims where people who have tripped together have reportedly been able to like say they saw the same exact thing. So it's believed that it kind of, like Joe said, opens like your third eye and allows you to experience more. Like you're more
That's
open
not-
to stuff
right.
around you.
and not a hallucination, but just like an opening, but
Well,
also maybe
yeah.
it makes you more susceptible to, like, I don't know, them.
Yeah, I mean, any sort of drug kind of makes you more susceptible, probably more so with like hallucinogens, but it wasn't just Phil was the only one taking them, but there were other family members who would report seeing things at different times. But with that
Right.
being said, put yourself in their shoes. You move to a new house, it's kind of creepy. It turns out to be an old funeral home. You're like, what, 6 or 7? Even if there's nothing there, you're gonna see shit. Like your imagination's gonna go fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Death is on your mind. Your brother is, struggling. People are probably talking about it, and there's mass hysteria is real. Like all it takes is one person to start really.
Well, not even
believing
that, but I
seeing
mean,
something.
like, say we all lived in the same house, we're brothers growing up. Like, if you told me you saw one thing, that would scare the shit out of me. I'd be so paranoid that, like, the smallest thing I would think is like a ghost. Like, I think they were kind of like building each other up, and they're just
Yeah.
seeing shit that
I'm
might not even
going
be
with-
there.
I'm going with somebody that the kids believe they saw something, and I can't wrap. I just can't wrap my head around how the Catholic Church.
They believe that something happened, but they can't prove it.
Yes, but I just can't wrap my head around how the church deemed an exorcism.
Well, some
was
neighbors
needed.
claim that there was no exorcism, that they never saw any. They said they never saw any priest going into the house.
Fucking neighbors are such fucking
the
dickheads.
The nosy neighbor had an article, and she's like, I went to the priest that claims was there, and he said he never did any exorcism, and no priest told him about it, so you're a bunch of liars. And they're like, yeah, we brought a priest from a different town. Shut up.
Yeah, so the street is on a street similar to mine, where it's not like it's not like a highway or nothing, but decent amount of traffic, and it's not some neighborhoods are like cul-de-sacs. You can play in the street, right? Like our streets you cannot. I would have no clue, and the house and the neighbors that are set up the exact same as the houses on my street. I would have no clue who's walking in and out of anybody's house on my street other than my direct next door neighbor. And even then I would have to just be sitting outside the entire time to see who's coming in and out. So that claim, I don't really give a shit about.
And
Yeah.
We said disinformation agent, which seems a little silly to say and probably is a little silly to think. But I would believe all the fucking neighbors being like, shut this shit the fuck down. Like, and
decrease property value. Yeah.
Right. And one of the idiot neighbors being like, I wrote in a diary every day. Tell me the date that they were there. Oh, yeah, that was a truck.
Dude, I would be like, I'm never gonna sell this fucking house. You guys we gotta end this now.
Dude, wouldn't like the neighbor? And back then, like that shit was, dude. Back then, neighbors were like talking to each other and shit. It's not,
Yeah.
What
Yeah,
I mean?
neighbors knew each other's names.
Yeah,
I couldn't even tell you one person's name that I live next to.
did fucking
Dude,
key parties and shit.
Asking to borrow a cup of sugar.
Ask to borrow.
Shit.
Your Bigfoot neighbor asks to borrow a handful of garlic. These are things that happen.
Yeah.
I don't know. So, okay. Yeah. Fuck, man. I don't know.
Hey, did you know that getting a blowjob was illegal in Texas until 1974?
Fucking dorks.
Fucking bunch of nerds.
Imagine that shit. And I'd end up being the one that dates the one that's like, hey, I follow the law. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, definitely don't want to break the law. Well, anything else on this, Mike? Mike, did you give us your thoughts? What you think? Oh, Mike froze.
Oh shit. Well, They got to him again.
Fucking goes, dude.
Fuck.
Dude, if Mike doesn't drop off every episode, I might not do the show anymore.
He's messaging me
drop
now.
out at the end of every episode. Well, I guess we'll wait for Mike then.
His Wi-Fi went out, so I guess we got to wrap it up.
Is that what he
shout
said?
out to Mike. He did, yeah. He said my fucking Wi-Fi just went out, and now he's texting me. So they're on to, dude. Another day of him not. He asked me, should I wear the tinfoil hat? I said, of course you fucking should. He's like, but we're not talking about aliens this time. Hey, there's NDAs and disinformation agents involved in this story. You should always be safe. I want to give Mike credit real quick while we wrap up. He felt really bad about missing last week's episode or leaving early. So he took the charge here. And I know Mike is he's kind of stepping out of his comfort zone. He's really excited to be doing this. And I think he did a good job presenting the information and gathering all the facts.
He was awesome. He was awesome. I did write an outro, but I'd like everyone to just, let's watch a little The Blow Monkeys. Sucks. Yo, this guy's face is a mess.
Dude, this guy looks like he's made out of clay, first of all. And
what is this?
What does he look like?
This is the most.
This sucks.
That is the most dramatic fucking song I've ever. Most dramatic
singing like
for a shitty song.
The face that he's making is so aggressive. Such fucking lame ass singing.
Yeah. So that is all the time we have for this week on All Documented, All True. Thank you all for joining us. Huge thanks to Joe and Mike, of course. And we will see you in a couple weeks for the next report on the unexplainable.
Yes. Thank you for listening.
Yes.